You're listening to the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. Now here's your hosts, Kevin, Derek, and Alex.
All righty, welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. I am Derek, and joined as always by your co-host, Kevin. Kevin, how we doing tonight?
Doing good, man. Friday night before week 12, the main slate kicks off. Had a pretty decent game considering really everyone thought it was kind of going to be a dud going into Thursday night, right? The Browns with the last minute heroics. Nick Chubb getting into the end zone twice. That was good to see for those of you who had stuck by Nick Chubb and kind of got forced into putting him in your starting lineup due to bye weeks. You got rewarded. So kudos to y'all for that. And what else? Daniel Jones mutually agreed to part ways. Brock Purdy is out for the 49ers this week. Let's see. Devonta Smith, Skinny Batman, out this week for the Philadelphia Eagles. And oh yeah, by the way, we still have a slew of bye weeks that we are working through here. So not definitely not changing the narrative here for 2024. This week is another challenge, and now it feels like it's even more daunting just because the playoffs are right around the corner here. So, we're here to help, fire the questions off. We'll do what we can and all that good stuff. But, D, how are you, man?
We are living large and doing what we can do here. I did like the word daunting put in there, right? Like when you're going through that, the word that popped in my mind was like, it's more challengingly-er. And
Right.
I'm like, that's not the right word there. The English are hard type of thing creeped up there on me. So, but no, it's going good. It's been fun, right? Like that was a lot of fun being able to finally, plug Nick Chubb into some of the roster lineups that I had last night and not be disappointed by that performance. So certainly was a lot of fun on that standpoint. So looking forward to that, and hopefully that continues to just kind of build for him to kind of close out the season here. But it'll be interesting, right? Like you said, there is a ton of bye weeks, a ton of injuries on this one. And so, just when you think you might be kind of getting by and getting through it, it does not get any easier. And then next week, everybody plays. And then in week 14, another 6 teams are on bye. So that's one of those that if you're kind of riding that wave and kind of riding that line on, are you going to be playoff eligible? Are you not going to be playoff eligible? I will tell you do everything you can to win this week, win next week, set yourself up in week 14. If you've got some of those guys on buys in that one as well, you're not having to hope on whatever waiver wire fine darling that you can try and stash and put in there. So
Absolutely.
it does get rough going through these stretches. So, but no, it should be interesting, right? Was very interested to kind of look up and see the Danny Dimes news, where just decided all of a sudden going to part ways. You would have thought that maybe that would have taken place more so in the off season, something like that. But I don't know. That's just kind of always interesting when they comes through. And it was kind of one of those that when I was looking back at that and I go, there was a whole lot of, hullabaloo a couple seasons ago where Saquon, Daniel Jones were in the same free agency class, right? There was a whole lot of they rushed to get the Daniel Jones deal done. Saquon got the tag, then kind of had that whole weird little contract extension thing, and then didn't even get offered one in this last offseason, and
Right.
tearing it up for the Eagles this season. So, it's one of those that normally with New York football teams, we're talking the Jets are going to Jets type of thing. Well, the Giants are going to Giant this one. So that's that is very much a very interesting type of deal here. So anyway, any other kind of thoughts out there that things that have kind of stood out here before we start getting into a few questions?
Nothing too terribly crazy, man. Let's see where the night takes us here, and we'll jump into a few of these questions.
All right, sounds good. Let's go ahead and rock and roll through that. Terrence over on YouTube, QB question: Richardson, Stafford, or DeVito?
Oh, um, as crazy it is, I'm going to tell you Anthony Richardson, and just hope that he uses his legs against the Lions here this week. So not a great matchup for Richardson, Stafford, or DeVito making his first start. Right, none of them are necessarily in plus matchups. I'm going to lean with Anthony Richardson going up against Detroit. They're a little bit more favorable against the pass than what the Eagles have been here the last couple weeks. So I am going to lead Richardson and just hope that he can get some things done with his legs. We're looking for 63% completion percentage, and hopefully 60 yards plus on the ground, and hopefully you can get a couple touchdowns between the two.
Right. And as crazy as it is to think, right, Tommy DeVito probably has the best matchup of all of these guys here, right? Tampa Bay has been pretty favorable against opposing quarterbacks here, but yeah, this is not one of those that I want to plug and chug a guy that's coming off making his first start and all of that on a roster that's and a team that, quite frankly, you have to start questioning what do they have to play for at this point.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah, DeVito is obviously playing for a getting a chance and getting another shot at this thing again, but again, right, like that starts becoming a you know the Giants are kind of a long way back on this one and would really take something to try and make anything happen. So yeah, at that point, I think I'm right there with you, right? I think I like Richardson a little bit more just from the standpoint that the legs probably provide a little bit safer floor, and I think he has the higher ceiling as well, right? Stafford and the Rams taking on the Philadelphia, and that is going to be an incredibly tough matchup there as well. So I think I'm right there with you on the Richardson side of that. Terrence asking the Broncos or the Commanders this week.
I'm going Denver against Las Vegas. Um, Yeah, I just trying to find in the words. It should the Raiders do typically give the Broncos a good bit of a game. The Broncos are on the road, but nevertheless, the Raiders are borderline lame duck, right? You have Brock Bowers, maybe Jacoby Myers just a little bit, but realistically, the Broncos are playing really well right now. Bo Nix is definitely in rookie of the year consideration, right? Jaden Daniels started out super hot, but Bo Nix has been the one who's kind of been showing that improvement week in and week out throughout the course of the season. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him kind of be the leader in the clubhouse, if you will, for offensive rookie of the year, which is good for the Broncos. It means Sean Payton did the right thing and got his guy, and it's paying off. So I'm going to take the Broncos defense here. Gardner Minshew doesn't scare anybody. The Broncos can find a way to, just keep Brock Bowers in check. I think they easily are going to get to Gardner Minshew a couple different times. Maybe another turnover or two, definitely a couple sacks. So I think the Broncos have some built-in points here.
Fair enough. So, yeah, I'm right there with you, right? I think the Broncos have the chance to be kind of a top two, top three defense this week. The Commanders, Dallas is certainly having some issues there, but yeah, that Denver defense is kind of more on the scary side. So I'm gonna lean on the Denver side of things there as well. So Terrence asking, since I roster the Broncos, if start them would be picking up Demario Douglas. Would that be better ad than Blake Corum? He also rosters Kyron Williams.
Um, If you need Douglas because of bye weeks and you have to start him, then I think that's the play. But if Douglas is just a depth piece, I would rather have Blake Corum just in case something happens to Kyron. That way it does not sacrifice your running back position as much, and being able to kind of key into that entire backfield of the Rams. We've seen where that it can be a very lucrative fantasy proposition is when Sean McVay gets hooked into one guy. He is that guy kind of throughout the course of the game. So you keep Blake Corum as an insurance policy or you pick up Blake Corum, excuse me, as an insurance policy, unless you absolutely have to start Pop Douglas. And if you have to, then you have to. Then that's the guy you grab.
Yeah. Cosign. I don't think I have anything to add on that one. Mr. Wumbo saying Josh Allen, Bijan, Jamar on buys, Pacheco and Devonta Smith out, and started Tillman, who got knocked out of the game. But hey, at least Warren got me 15.5 points. So at least you got something out of that. That's for sure. Right.
Yeah. Heck yeah. Warren had himself a nice game.
Yeah, he did. So Terrence over on YouTube, must win week, had Warren at the flex. Nice start there. Start Kyron, Connor, Nico, Cup, Ertz, Broncos, Lutz. Thoughts?
I can tell you in our home league, Terrence, I'm starting Nico, Cup, and Ertz this week. So part of my starting lineup absolutely mirrors yours. I have the Broncos potentially starting. I'm carrying the Vikings and the Broncos just because the way our home league is with defenses, they're ranked 1 and 2 in our league, and so I'm kind of refusing to give up a top 2 defense to the rest of the league and allowing them to potentially bite me with it here later in the playoffs. So I'm doing the unthinkable and rostering 2 defenses here down the stretch because the way the scoring works out, I have 1 and 2. So my starting lineup looks very similar to yours in a lot of ways. Like I said, especially with Nico, Cup, Ertz, potentially Denver. So I'm right there with you, man. So my thoughts are it better work out because I need to win too.
I like it. Terrence, one thing I'll tell you kind of going forward there is if you have somebody playing on the Thursday night game and you want to play them at the flex, don't leave them in the flex spot. Move them into either the running back or the wide receiver position and move one of those other guys into the flex, just from the standpoint that if something happens and pops up on Friday practice, Saturday, or an illness going into Sunday, something like that, it provides you more flexibility going through that. So just kind of future reference there, something, best practice type of thing. So Burrow, Terrence saying Burrow on bye, Purdy is out. That is correct. Hopefully you've got another QB that you can pivot to there.
Well, I'm thinking that might go to the quarterback question that we opened the show with, right?
Yep, I think you're right.
Richardson, Stafford, or DeVito.
Yep. So yeah, and the answer's still Richardson on that one. So, and Terrence saying great advice. You are most welcome, Terrence. Mr. Wumbo saying, wait, so Amir Abdullah doesn't scare you. Going back to your Raiders comments there.
Scare me? No. Worry me? Yes, only because Raiders running backs against the Broncos here over the course of the last 4 years have done particularly well. Now, a lot of that was Josh Jacobs, but the Raiders absolutely still get up for this game as a rivalry, and sometimes the Broncos just don't. It took a big pick 6 from Patrick Surtain to kind of turn that around here earlier in the year, where the Broncos did beat the Raiders. So scare me? Like I said, no, doesn't scare me, but I always am a little worried just because I think the Raiders treat this game more of a rivalry than the Broncos do. I think a lot of the Bronco players are so worried about Kansas City that they forget about the Raiders here a little bit. And the Raiders generally do a good job of getting up for all of their AFC West rivals.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Jason over on YouTube, will you start Ertz or Schoonmaker? Already starting Eckler, the Commanders defense and the Commanders kicker. Didn't want to start for Commanders. Thoughts?
I think this is the week you can start for Commanders against the Cowboys. The Cowboys are on kind of life support, if we can even call it that. So if you're going to start for Commanders this week, against Dallas is the right team to do it with. So I do think you're all right, because I would much rather have Ertz than Schoonmaker. Eckler, okay, fine. You're hoping he falls into the end zone a little bit. The Redskins D, I think that they have a very likely shot of capitalizing on a couple turnovers from Dallas. And a kicker's a kicker, man. Don't get too tied up into that. So
Right.
this would be the way for, Redskins, Commanders. I know we're kind of following your nomenclature, but Washington in general, right? You can start 4 Washington players and be okay this week, in my opinion.
Yeah. And then Jason saying shaking their head against Purdy. Who do I start? AR-15, Caleb, or Tua? I think I'm gonna go with
So
Tua there.
yeah, I would tell you it's kind of a toss up between Richardson and Tua. Caleb's kind of a distant third in this group. Um, i- the Lions might be the hottest team. Tua has a divisional rival, but at least it's at home, so that does help him a little bit. And then Caleb Williams, kind of later on down the road here against Minnesota, another divisional rival. So I think I'm with Derek. Like I think I lean Tua just because he's a better thrower of the football. But if you need more upside, I honestly think the upside play might be with Richardson just because of what you get out of his legs.
So he's saying that he needs the upside because
He played against Chubb on Thursday.
oh yeah, he played against Chubb Thursday. Who has it higher, AR Tua? Yep, that was what Kevin was just saying. Is that AR probably has the higher ceiling, and Tua is probably the safer floor at that one.
Yeah, I think Richardson's going to be stuck into throwing the ball a lot of that second half against the Lions. The Dolphins really should be able to stay pretty balanced here against the Patriots. So you're going to see a lot of running plays out of this Dolphins offense. So sheer volume and upside, I do think Richardson edges out Tua this week.
Yeah. And then Jace was saying that the only other option that he has to replace Eckler to avoid starting 4 Washington players would be Wan'Dale Robinson.
Not with DeVito. I want to see how that kind of looks first. I'd rather roll with Eckler against the Cowboys.
Right. Mr. Wumbo saying if McConkey is called out before Sunday's game, should they start? Should they pick up Darius Slayton to start if Neighbors sits, pick up and start Amir if their 2 running backs are out, or pick up and start Joshua Palmer on the Monday?
Slayton, if Darius sits.
Yeah, I think I'm
He's
right.
gonna be the only guy left in town. We've seen from the play calling that Darius Slayton does get featured if Neighbors is out. Abdullah, I mean, I understand the allure there. Again, I do cautiously like I'm okay with Amir Abdullah if Madison doesn't go. But I think the easier path to points might actually be Darius Slayton.
Yeah, which is kind of crazy to think about when you're going into week 12 on a season, but especially the last few years. But yeah, I think I would agree with that.
I would tell you it's not Josh Palmer for sure. Like right now, he is the third option in the passing game for the Chargers. Like you have Lad McConkey, you have Quentin Johnston. So Palmer might end up being number 2, maybe. But I think overall, I would rather trust Slayton this week, and just kind of seeing how it shakes out.
Yeah. All righty. Very good. Let's go ahead and head on over to Mario over on YouTube. Good evening. Will it be ironic if Daniel Jones hands the Giants a loss via the Cowboys on Thanksgiving?
That would be very interesting to see Daniel Jones end up with the Cowboys. I don't see that happening, but you never know.
Right. Yeah, I don't even know where right now would be a very good landing spot for Daniel Jones. Like I'm just not
I
seeing
don't
it
know that
plug
I'd
and play.
want to pick a landing spot.
Right.
Like you want to play, right? As a competitor, these guys do want to play. But if you're thinking about what his career choices are, I don't know that I want to go anywhere else and look bad for 2 different teams in one season. I'd rather sit back and wait and have teams kind of go, well, this guy has starting experience and we think we can work through these things that the Giants didn't have him do well. And our offensive line is better. And he's shown flashes of greatness, goodness. I don't know, greatness is the right word, goodness. So if I'm Daniel Jones, I don't know if I'm wanting to play again this year.
Fair
Collect
enough.
your paycheck, stay in shape, work on your mechanics, and see what 2025 brings you.
Okay. Yeah, flashes of above averageness is the ceiling that we've seen from Daniel Jones.
Well, absolutely right. Well, he finished quarterback 8 a couple years ago
Yeah.
because he was using his legs and everything else. So we've seen top 10 finish from Daniel Jones. It's just how you piece it all together. And if he's not in the right offense, it doesn't really matter because he's not going to be a guy. He's not going to be a Baker Mayfield, right? Jameis Winston, where he can drop back and throw the ball 35 to 40 times a game. Like realistically, you want Daniel Jones to throw it 25 to 30, um, and really set him up for success. Have him use his legs, have him scramble out of the pocket and get some kind of some of those designed chunk plays off of the running game. And the Giants were never able to figure that out, even with their limited firepower on offense.
Fair enough. Well, and I mean, you got part of the problem too that even if they got him out and in space and running, there's a good chance that the yard line would tackle him. So,
Mhm.
all right, Mr. Wumbo, saying that the only reason that they bring up Palmer is because it's against the Ravens and they love letting wide receivers wander around freely. That secondary has been bad. You are correct there. So the only other guys catching balls would be Quentin Johnson and Will Disley, maybe Jalen Rager.
Yeah.
Yeah. That very well could be a game that we just see it kind of slow down and get kind of stick in the mudish, right? Like that very well could be a low scoring 13-10 affair. And I don't think either coach is going to be overly upset by that in another rendition of Harbaugh versus Harbaugh here. So,
Yeah, that's true. The Harbaugh Bowl.
all right. So yeah, at that point, like I see where the thought process is, but I'm back with you on that Darius Slayton side of things. All righty. And again, guys, any other questions, comments, anything like that, go ahead and throw those in the chat. Let's get those rocking and rolling here and get everything set to roll into week 12 as we make those that march towards the cash and trophies here. All righty. Mr. Wumbo saying that they'll have to wait until Sunday around 11:30. Either way, waiting to see if like 5 people sit. Yeah.
Yeah.
That is the your next comment there sums it up. What a year from Mr. Wumbo. Yeah, I would agree with that as well. So, alrighty. Any well, some other comments and questions coming in here. Any matchups that you're kind of looking forward to this weekend that really kind of stand out?
I think the Eagles Rams game is probably the one that sticks out the most, honestly. The Rams obviously completely healthy as far as skill position goes offensively with Nakua Cup, Stafford, and Kyron, versus a Eagles defense that's really played well under Vic Fangio here the last few weeks. So I am interested to watch that one. The Rams are still fighting for kind of their playoff livelihood, if you will, in a really tight NFC West division. So there's a lot to play for in that particular game. I think the same thing for Seattle and Arizona, trying to kind of fight it out for first place there in the AFC, or excuse me, NFC West. So I think there's a lot to be said there. Baltimore in the Chargers, the Monday night game. I think that one has a lot of intrigue, or the Harbaugh Bowl, if you will. So there's some intrigue with that one as well, especially from a fantasy perspective. I would have told you Green Bay, San Francisco until Brock Purdy went out. And now I'm not sure if that has a whole lot to it or if it's just going to be kind of an ugly game and San Francisco is just going to try and muck it up long enough to stick around at the end and have a big drive with Christian McCaffrey. So that one's a little interesting, but not hyper interesting. So outside of that, I'm not blown away by the slate this week, right? Like there's just not a whole lot of marquee matchups. We wanted the Cowboys and Commanders to be really good this week. I don't think so. I think Washington's able to kind of handle business here against a Cowboys team that's just completely underperforming and just cannot get right. So that one doesn't super intrigue me. Selfishly, Broncos Raiders for wild card, kind of a wild card spot here for the Broncos as they're kind of plugging right along here. Because they should, having the Raiders, Browns, and Colts as kind of their next 3 games, they should be able to get to 9 wins pretty quickly. Here over the next few weeks. And then once you get to 9 wins, you're looking for like one more, and then you feel like you're in a really good spot to get to a wild card game. So we'll see what shakes out, but it's definitely a playoff type game for the Broncos to keep pace and possibly try and get a game back against the Chargers and or Chiefs.
Right. Yeah, this was one of those that when I was looking through this, kind of looking in there, I was hopeful that we'd have probably 4 or 5 games that really kind of just stuck out, but at this point in the season, it's really kind of becoming sparse there. One of the other ones that I'm kind of interested to see, and it's more from a case of just looking to see if Detroit can remain as just dominant looking as they've been looking recently. And it's one of those that are we going to see Detroit just absolutely kind of roll in and again continue some of the domination that they've had where that there's been a lot of 30, 40, 50-point games that they've been putting up. So that's kind of one of those that I think we could probably see this thing be another 45 to 14, 45 to 10, 50 to 10 type of outcome on this one. So that is one that I'm very interested to kind of see how that one shapes up, but I don't think that there's going to be a lot of back and forth in that particular one there as well. So, let's hit this question here. William over on YouTube, Stroud or Darnold? The Titans have a lot of quarterback injuries.
Yeah, I'm not opposed. Both are divisional matchups. I'm not opposed to playing CJ Stroud here, right? And you got Nico Collins, who's back healthy, to kind of help round things out there. Probably an overall a better running game with Joe Mixon to kind of keep that Titans defense honest as far as how they're playing in the secondary. Sam Darnold is playing okay, but has definitely been struggling a little bit since they lost their left tackle here about 3 weeks ago. So I'm not opposed to Stroud. I think they're pretty close here in the rankings, honestly. So it's not that they're too far different, but I think for the sake of the edge, I'm going to take Stroud because he's at home against the Titans, where Darnold is on the road at Chicago.
Right. The Chicago secondary has been good. Like that's really been the strength of their team at this point. In a season that's kind of some hard things to find positive to say about the Bears. That secondary is certainly playing well. So I think I'm right there with you, even though Stroud has been a much tougher start here lately, right? Like the last time we saw a QB1 type of finish out of Stroud was all the way back in like week 4. So it's been a while, but I do think that Nico getting healthy, I do think that we're going to see, Tennessee's defense banged up here a little bit. I do think that we'll see an okay finish out of Stroud, and I think this is one that we might see him sneak into the very back end of QB1 when it's all said and done this week. So Sam Darnold, I think the ceiling's kind of mid quarterback 2. So that's kind of where I'm at. Mr. Wumbo saying after the Bears swapped the coach, they nearly beat the Packers. I wonder what they do against the Vikings.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I do think the Vikings defense is unique in the fact that they show a ton of different fronts. They've been very opportunistic on defense. They've been giving all sorts of teams fits. So I do think if the Vikings can get on a roll early, it's going to be hard to stop that defense. So I would agree with that. the Bears did look good last week, made that game much closer than I think what many, if not most people thought it would be. But I do think that the Vikings offer a bit of a different challenge because they show things in so many different ways that it's going to be tough for Caleb Williams.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. So I don't know that we're gonna see a whole lot of real good things come out of that one on the Caleb Williams side of things. So yeah, I think I agree with that. Arturo over on YouTube. You all think JJ's is a top 3 wide receiver?
I mean, yeah, how could the talent alone puts him there, right? It is a tougher matchup for sure, but Justin Jefferson's done a pretty good job of getting his regardless. Addison had the big long touchdown last week, so that was kind of a bummer. But JJ still seeing the lion's share of the targets, kind of consistently coming down with 5 to 7 grabs per game. It's just a matter of whether he gets in the end zone or not. So I think again Jefferson will get his, but if 6 for 80 and you're kind of hoping he gets in the end zone, like I don't think he blows up necessarily. So maybe he finishes just outside the top 3 because of that. And I could see where teams might be pivoting elsewhere, if you will, if you don't think he's going to be a top 3. But if you have him, you're starting him. You don't have 2 or 3 better options than Justin Jefferson, regardless of the matchup. So you're going to be playing him regardless.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well, right? Like I think that's I think you'd be hard pressed to find 3 guys that even if you could pick anybody you want, I don't know that there's 3 guys I would put in front of Justin Jefferson, even with that tougher matchup, right? Like maybe Amon-Ra this week. Like the matchups aren't great for the Eagles or the Rams players. Maybe Nico with the Tennessee matchup and them and their secondary not being 100% there. I mean, Tyreek and Metcalf both have some decent matchups there, but Tyreek we just haven't seen it this season, and DK, could have a good week there. It's certainly something that could happen, but yeah, I think I'm right there with you. There's not 3 guys that I'm going to put in ahead of Justin Jefferson this week. Arturo saying that they just want to see a 32-yard TD or 2 touchdowns or something nuclear on that one.
Right.
Yeah, that'd be nice. Victor over on YouTube saying that they have Josh Allen, Nix, Brees, Josh Jacobs, Rashad White, Eckler, Jamar Sutton. Yeah, Jamar Sutton, Neighbors, Jennings, Disley, Kelsey. They're 5 and 6, 7th. If I win, I contend. Got offered Amon-Ra for Jamar, but are they the same or do I bite the bullet? No,
I'm not doing that straight up. I'm keeping Jamar.
Right. I mean, Jamar. Yeah, Jamar. This rest of the season is probably even with the tougher strength of schedule, right? Like Amon-Ra gets the better strength of schedule down the stretch. But Jamar Chase, I'm going to ride with that one. And he's been wide receiver 1 at this point in the season. And I don't know that that's going to change much, right? Like
I agree. If they're talking Amon-Ra St. Brown and a piece,
it's a different conversation for sure.
Yeah.
Alrighty. So Mario over on YouTube, was Justin Fields given sack plays to save Rusty Wilson in yesterday's game?
No, I think that they're trying to find some wrinkles because of what Taysom Hill did to the Browns the week prior. And the Browns, to their credit, went and studied the film and kind of buttoned up some of the things that they allowed to Taysom Hill that they weren't going to allow Justin Fields to do. So I wouldn't say that he was giving them sack plays. I don't understand why seemingly they always threw him in on 3rd down. I think you're putting a quarterback in a really tough spot when he's got one play to try and make a 3rd down work and otherwise you're punting the ball. So I don't necessarily love the spots that they put him in, but they were trying to provide a spark because they saw what Taysom Hill did against the Browns the week previous, and the Steelers just weren't able to execute as well. Slash, the Browns did a much better job of being prepared for a mobile type quarterback this week.
Yeah. Cosign. We did have a question come in earlier in the day over on YouTube as well. This one from Michael saying, full point PPR. They need a wide receiver, a D, and a flex. Was going with Debo and deciding between Ladd or Bucky, but Purdy is out, so rethinking him and going with Ladd and Bucky. What do you think?
I would agree with that. You have no idea what you're going to get. I anticipate a lot of Christian McCaffrey. So I'm perfectly fine going Ladd and Bucky and kind of taking the sure thing. Ladd seeing a bigger target share, Ladd seeing more opportunities per week. Debo, what you really need is you need like a 60-yard touchdown, right? You need him to hit a slant or a skinny post or a quick in or something like that where he's able to get upfield and really get those yards after catch. Those are super hard to predict. So given the fact that you can go to a pivot who you know is going to see probably 7 targets in Ladd McConkey, if he comes down with 5 of them, maybe gets into the end zone, I think that's probably your path of least resistance.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So very good. Thanks for that question, Michael. Mr. Wumbo over on YouTube. Fields, you're not good enough to start, but we think you're good enough to put in on third down, which is the most important down. So
Fact.
yeah. So
yeah, I like Mike Tomlin, but I did not love how they played Justin Fields last night.
No, and it's one of those that it's kind of rough when you got to come in on just that one down after just like anything else, takes a little bit of getting in a rhythm and being in rhythm to kind of do that. And it's coming in cold, trying to make something happen gets a little rough, a little tough there. So yeah, I would agree with you on the usage was not ideal. It was not, it was tough to be in a spot to succeed at that point.
Yes.
So, but yeah, so any, and while we're waiting for a few more questions to kind of come in here, any other, we talked on some of the matchups there. Any, anybody that you see as being having kind of a potential big game there, or somebody that potentially kind of fallen out of that? And if we look at like the running backs and kind of looking at the top 10 kind of ranked guys there and what that looks like, right? So out of the top 10 here, tell me who you think is going to have the hardest time staying in that top 10 at the weekend finish. You got CMC, Saquon Barkley, Devon Achane, Joe Mixon, Derrick Henry, Kenneth Walker, Jamar Gibbs, James Conner, Kyron Williams, and Josh Jacobs.
I think it might be Kyron Williams. We're seeing Blake Corum get a few more snaps kind of each week. I could see the Eagles defense kind of shutting down that run game and just really forcing Stafford to beat man coverage kind of play after play here. So I think Kyron might have the toughest week of that top 10 that you listed. Behind him, the rest of these guys seem to make so much sense that I'm not afraid of any of these guys in their matchups. Some guys that I really do like that are just below them is Kareem Hunt won last week, right? I think Kareem Hunt could get into the top 10, won last week against Carolina. I think you could see Ramondre Stevenson have a really good week against Miami. I think that Brian Robinson Jr. could have a really strong week against the Cowboys. So kind of all those guys do intrigue me as far as upside plays for RB2 type purposes, though.
Fair enough. Yeah, I like it. Anybody on that list that I guess I don't know where I was going. My apologies there. Let's go ahead and head back to the chat here. Arturo, who do y'all prefer rest of the season, Hurts or Lamar?
Man, we're splitting hairs at this point. I'm gonna tell you Hurts because I like his strength of schedule better. Now I could also pivot and tell you Lamar that he's playing closer to an MVP type pace than Jalen Hurts is. So I do think that you kind of taken maybe some of the good with the bad. At this point, these guys are right next to each other, right? So I'm not freaking out and racking my brain. It's going to be a quick decision. Like, who really has the matchup? What do I think is going to happen? Lamar's probably playing more like an MVP than Jalen Hurts is. Jalen Hurts has an easier schedule. Uh, you know, both of them have really strong running games that they can lean on. Um, Ultimately, I'm going to lean Jalen Hurts only because when the Eagles get down inside the 2 or 3 yard line, you get the tush push. When the Ravens get down inside the 2 or 3 yard line, generally you're getting Derrick Henry. So
Mhm.
I'm going for the cheating rushing touchdowns, if you will, from Jalen Hurts to kind of put me just over the top of Lamar.
Yeah, I think I like that call there as well. But this one here really is 6 of one, half dozen of another, right? Like these guys here, when we look at weeks 12 through 17 for the remainder of the fantasy kind of season here, realistically, I think when we look up, we're going to see these guys within probably a handful of points at the end of the season during these last few weeks. So, um, yeah, it really is. Yeah, just kind of flip a coin on that one for me. Mario in the chat saying that it's Lamar for them, and Arturo saying them as well. Just it's just hate seeing Hurts stealing the Saquon TDs, which it goes right back to the point you were making about the tush push and in those short yardage goal line work.
Well, yeah, I think Saquon's been tackled inside the 2 yard line 13 times this year.
That's something crazy.
It's been it's been something crazy. And of the 13 times, like 8 of the next 13 plays have been Jalen Hurts touchdowns. Like it's been crazy. So it's one of those things. We thought the tush push might fade away a little bit after Jason Kelsey retired and that the Eagles would do something a bit different. And they haven't. They've stuck with the tush push. It's still working for them. We've seen a lot of 1 yard touchdown tush push type thing from Jalen Hurts. So eventually everything's going to kind of even itself out. But this is exactly what happened last year too. You kept having Eagles running backs go down inside the 2 or 3 yard line. You just sit there like, okay, we'll tush push. Like, screw it. We're just going
Right,
to overpower everybody into the end zone. And
right.
until teams find out how to consistently stop that play, the Eagles are going to keep doing it. And I don't blame them. Show me you can stop me, and then I'll worry about what I'm going to do after that.
Yeah, that's a fair point. So, when it comes to some of the wide receivers out there, right on the top 10 side of things, who do you see having potentially a tougher time maintaining that top 10 performance for guys that have you kind of yet to play here? You got Amon-Ra, Justin Jefferson, AJ Brown, Puka Nacua, Nico Collins, Cooper Kupp, Tyreek Hill, DK Metcalf, CeeDee Lamb, and Malik Neighbors.
Um, I think Cooper Kupp's going to have a difficult time here. This just seems like a Puka game to me. So I think Cooper might have a tougher matchup here against the Eagles. So that one, I think I could see him sliding outside the top 10 a little bit. CeeDee Lamb, I see him sliding outside until you can show me that you can feed CeeDee Lamb and he can get back in the end zone. His top 10 presence is by name alone. It is not by fantasy output.
Right.
So I get why he's there, but I could see him falling out of the top 10. So those two guys are probably the two that I have the most questions about. Season the date and how they're playing, possibly Tyreek with this wrist injury, but we saw him finally get going here a little bit last week. See if we can capitalize on that. So I sure hope so. I have a lot of I should say a lot. I have a good amount of Tyreek to where I need him to continue to show, right? Continue to be a presence, be a thorn in everyone's side, see if Miami can steal some games, and see if we can get a really big game out of Tyreek this year because we haven't seen it in 2024 just yet.
Yeah, You're not kidding. One of the guys too that I would add to that list is Malik Neighbors, right? With the fact that we've got the change at quarterback here. Yeah, that a lot of kind of uncertainty heading into that one for sure. So it'd be interesting to see how they ultimately use him and what that may look like going
Yeah,
forward.
I'd agree. The lack of touchdown upside and touchdown probability for Malik Neighbors, I think that's a very wise decision to kind of hedge your bets here and thinking he's going to be outside of the top 10.
Right. All righty, let's hit up a another comment here. Mr. Wumbo over on YouTube saying Coker is added to the injury report on Friday and is questionable along with Thielen being questionable. So they're interested in seeing if Leggett does something.
I mean, it's possible. I mean, I'm it's a tough matchup against the Chiefs, right? Like I don't know. I don't know if Bryce Young has the goods to be able to really put this Kansas City defense on tilt, and because of that, I'm truly fading all Panther wide receivers, pass catchers, really in any format that I can. So it is possible that Xavier Leggett does get going. He's able to see, 5 catches on 6 or 7 targets. Maybe he comes up with 65 yards, something like that. But at that point, all these guys are like low end flex plays at absolute best. Other than that, they're really just depth pieces at the moment.
Right, it's a desperation start is really what it comes down to for sure. So, um, William over on YouTube saying that they're thinking of starting Tracy over Jonathan Taylor. Thoughts?
I'm not going to shame you for it, William. Jonathan Taylor has not been very dynamic for a guy that we drafted at the back end of the first round, top end of the second. Tyrone Tracy, being a former wide receiver, does catch some balls out of the backfield. I can see where the Giants want to get the ball out of DeVito's hands rather quickly. So I do think that can spell some easy chunk points for Tyrone Tracy. And quite frankly, the Giants have a much easier matchup than the Colts do going up against the Lions defense, who's been really stingy against the run.
Right. I mean, they're one of the top 3 defenses in the when it comes to giving up opposing points to opposing fantasy running backs. Like it just doesn't really happen. Um, yeah. So one of those two that you then also have the issue that one, I don't see that there's much touchdown upside for Indianapolis this week. 2, even if they do get down in the red zone, like there's a good chance that you see Anthony Richardson punch that in over Jonathan Taylor. So I don't mind the thought and the starting Tyrone Tracy over Jonathan Taylor, right? Like I think both of these guys are in the mid to top end running back 2 kind of conversation for this week. So, but Tracy certainly does have the better matchup there, and we could very well see it to a point like Kevin was saying, where there's enough balls being caught out of the backfield that that could overshadow that one there, right? Like I don't see many balls being caught by Jonathan Taylor for Indy this week. So great question though. El Playa over on YouTube saying sit 1 Flowers JSN Jennings Irving PPR.
I'm going to sit Jennings, just again, backup quarterback. Yeah, backup quarterback. I think I'm going to sit that. I'd rather have the upside of Flowers. JSN's been on a tear here lately with Geno. I think Bucky Irving is poised to have a good game here against the Giants as well. So Jennings is my odd man out.
Yeah, and if Purdy was in, it would certainly have changed that because
Mm-hmm.
Jennings certainly has looked like kind of that wide receiver 1 with Ayuk being out and when Jennings been playing there. So, but no, I right there with you on that one, right? With Purdy being out, it's an easy sit for me. Mr. Wumbo over on YouTube saying for some reason that they thought Leggett was doing all right, but his top 3 yardages are 40, 42, and 66. Yeah. Carolina's offense has been just playing bad, and that's being
Yes.
nice about it. So there's not many bright, shiny spots there. something that I guess we can look forward to or look into, or however you want to tap that one up there, is the fact that we may finally see Jonathan Brooks make his NFL debut this weekend. Welcome to the league, playing Kansas City, who's been incredibly tough against the run. So that maybe not the best way to introduce the young man there, but we'll see what this thing looks like. So one of those two that with the I guess I said that there weren't really any bright, shiny spots for Carolina's offense. I take that back. Chuba Hubbard's been good for them over the course of the season from a fantasy perspective, at least. So
Yeah, he has been. My biggest worry is with Brooks coming back. If they say they're going to ease him in, but I mean, if he's getting 9 touches, 6 of those are probably going to Chuba. So it is going to eat into his workload.
Right. Yeah, because that's certainly one of those that, part of the reason that we've seen Chuba be that bright spot is the fact that he's getting, close to 20 opportunities a game. And certainly if Jonathan Brooks comes in and takes 10 opportunities away, that's going to certainly eat into that quite a bit. So I think this very well could be the end of the road for Chuba Hubbard being that kind of back end RB1, top end RB2 that we've seen all season long here. And I think that that's probably going to be one of those that we see him kind of bottom out there closer to the running back 2, bottom end running back 2, top end running back 3 when it's all said and done, kind of rest of the season. So certainly kind of a rough finish if you've been relying on Chuba Hubbard week in, week out. That's for sure. So, all righty. Well, I do think that's. Oh, we got a couple more questions coming in here. If you have questions, make sure you're throwing those in the chat and we'll hit those up here. But I think we're getting ready to kind of start wrapping that up there a little bit. So let's make sure we get all the questions, comments, concerns, all of that in there so we can hit them up. Mr. Wumbo saying Javonte Williams and Rashad White over Debo with Purdy out.
Yes. Yeah, I think you have to. With Purdy being out, and not quite sure how this Niners offense is going to look. Again, expecting a lot of CMC. I think this gives you the path to the greatest floor with Javonte and Rashad White over Debo.
Right. And the Javonte side of that scares me a bit from the standpoint that we've seen Audric Estime get the workload, then not get the workload. Denver is very much seemingly just going to ride the hot hand at the running back position week in, week out. And so that there does give me a little bit of heartburn there, but less heartburn than Debo without Purdy and what that could look like. So for sure. All righty. Oh, Kevin, I do think that takes us all the way kind of down to the end of the questions and the comments here. If folks have those ones in there, we'll hit those up while we're still out here. But I think that's any kind of other thoughts, any other spaces you want to kind of head towards.
So many, not so much space wise. For many of you, this could be your deadline for trades. So definitely take a look at that before Sunday. Try and get that submitted in if you guys are looking to make a last minute move. Remember that this becomes the time of year where depth is not as important. You've navigated through most of your bye weeks. Yes, many of us with 6 teams on bye in week 14 are going to have some headaches here, but now is really the time where you want to try and consolidate some of that depth, push it out, and to get high upside starting caliber players, so that way you can make a difference in your fantasy playoffs and start to work on taking home the cash and trophies. So food for thought there, but as always, thank you guys for firing off your questions. Hopefully we're able to help out here. If you haven't already done so, please jump over the YouTube channel at Good Old Boys FF. Hit like and subscribe so that way you guys can get the notifications every time we go live on Tuesdays weekly and during the regular season here Friday nights with Derek and myself.
Absolutely. And Mr. Wumbo saying, thanks a lot. Good luck. Absolutely,
You as
guys.
well,
Right.
sir.
So make sure that you guys are rocking and rolling it, doing everything that you can to try and sneak out these wins here in weeks 12, 13, and 14 as we really get kind of geared up here heading into those fantasy playoffs. And like Kevin said, yeah, you can find us on all those socials at Good Old Boys FF. But I do believe that that's going to do it for us tonight. And again, appreciate everybody tuning in, chiming in, all the questions, the interaction, always a lot of fun there. So hoping everybody has a great week, and we will talk to you on Tuesday. He's Kevin. I'm Derek. Have a good one. Be safe. Toodaloo.